Do you want me to like say what your affiliation is, or do you want me to just introduce you? And what's your
I'm the executive director of Hawaii Crop Improvement Association.
Executive director of Hawaii Crop Improvement Association. Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Your phone off?
Yeah, should be. Oh, wait, maybe it's on vibrate.
So is the green for a purpose, or?
Yeah, it's a green screen, and you can replace the green screen with anything.
Any
Movies,
could be
photographs.
tarot.
Yeah, tarot, exactly.
Right.
That would be good for our show, actually.
I have a good photograph of a greenhouse, which is cool.
Oh, that would be cool. I can send you the link, but Syngenta's got all these high-res downloadable
Would you
images.
please
Yeah, they're
remember to
great.
do that?
I use them all the time.
That's what I use for
Yeah.
you. Okay. All right, we're rolling, and I'm starting the clock.
Terrific.
Ready?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fresh Air Hawaii. I'm David Austin, and today we have with us a very special guest. It's Alicia Maluafiti, who is the executive director of the Hawaii Crop Improvement Association. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We're here today to talk about a hot button issue, which is seed crops. It's very big in the agricultural arena right now, and in fact, there's a recent article about seed crops, right?
Well, we've had a few that have come about. Primarily, the impetus for the articles have been this new report that came out, and it's a 3-year summary of the economic impact of the seed industry in Hawaii.
Okay.
And it really kind of lays the foundation for the growth of the industry and their contribution to ag in Hawaii and the work that they're doing.
Okay, and what is the seed crop industry?
It's for the most part, we're an ag biotech trade association.
Okay.
And the member companies who are doing work here in Hawaii, there's primarily 5.
Okay.
Monsanto's the biggest and usually well known, and followed by maybe Syngenta, Dow Agro, Pioneer, which is a subsidiary of DuPont, and BASF, which is only on Kauai.
Okay.
And they're mostly doing biotech research crops, but they also do traditional hybrid work as well. So it's about 50-50. And most of it, we say the seed industry, because most of them are doing different parent lines of seed crops, such as corn.
Okay.
Corn's the number one, about 94%, followed by maybe soy. Some are doing sunflower, some are doing rice.
Okay, and these are crops that are designed exclusively to produce seeds to be planted elsewhere.
Right. So the work here is primarily trying to come up with those traits within these very specific parent lines.
I see.
So they're not growing. These are not the farmers growing out the crops to sell at market. These are the research lines that are going to go back to the mainland and be sold all over the world.
I see.
That's why we like to talk about, we're growing locally to feed globally.
Right, and why is Hawaii such a good place for this?
Yeah, it just turns out that the seed industry is able to grow 3 to 4 seasons of crops here in Hawaii versus Iowa and all those other sort of Ohio, those Midwestern states, they can only get 1 season.
Okay.
And politically, aside from the fact that we have some challenges here in Hawaii, aside from going to another country, which may be politically unstable, this is really the place to do business, staying in the United States. And clearly here in Hawaii, I'm happy to have them here.
Right,
So.
exactly, and it seems like the climate's very helpful to.
It is
to
absolutely, and there are certain things that they can and cannot grow. Certain conditions, and right now, Oahu and Kauai have a majority of the companies.
Okay.
But we have a couple on Molokai, which are actually some of the biggest employers on that island now, as well as Maui. We don't have any companies on Big Island.
Okay, and I know that certainly that. The seed crop industry has a lot of critics, and maybe you want to talk a little bit about issues that relate to the genetic modification of seeds, because I know that that's a very, very popular concern.
Well, that's actually the crux of the anti-GMO sort of rhetoric.
Okay.
And these are folks who just simply have I would consider a very philosophical, almost zealous, religious position on the foods that they eat should be natural.
Okay.
And so people don't consider genetically engineered crops to be natural.
Okay.
Now, Natural, there is natural as many of the vaccines we take.
Of course.
There's natural as a lot of the pharmaceuticals that many of our people take to survive. So it is a very focused type of science, use of the science, whereas before you take two plants and you'd cross it and you'd cross your fingers.
Right.
This is very specific, and the scientists have brought it down right down to the gene, down to the protein.
Huh.
And they're looking for certain things that can help farmers.
Okay.
They're not just growing things and doing the research to just, just to make money and just to, just out of the whim. They're really looking at things that farmers struggle with. So they want to look at traits that increase yield.
Okay.
Traits that actually enable them to reduce pesticide use.
Okay.
Because if you make it virus resistant, then you no longer have to use the pesticide.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And they actually make some crops, some lines are resistant to certain herbicides because farmers go out and they plant, and a lot of the labor intensiveness is pulling weeds.
I see.
So they make them herbicide resistant.
Okay.
So they can spray something like a Roundup, it'll kill all the weeds, but it won't kill the plant.
I see. Okay.
And the big push right now, of course, with climate change is drought resistance.
Yeah.
And that is going to, as soon as one of our companies come up with that line, that's going to be a wonderful solution for the world.
Right,
Yeah.
because it seems like a lot of the problems that I guess farmers encounter a lot. One big one that seems to be coming up a lot is the problem with drought, and certainly
Right.
after climate change, progresses, it's going to become
It's going to get worse, but salinity in the soil is another issue.
Okay.
We've come up a situation in Micronesia, and because of the climate change and the elevated sea levels, the soil is now more high in salinity. So folks in Micronesia are having difficulty just growing some of their really traditional plants such as taro, and it's dying because of the salinity in the soil. So some research is going on to see if they could find out a taro that's tolerant to salt.
Okay.
A researcher out of California has come up with believe it or not, a flood tolerant rice.
Huh.
Because in China, that's the number one staple. And when
Right.
when they have flooding in these
Right.
low valleys, rice actually it grows in water, but if it's flooded for 2 weeks, if it's covered for 2 weeks, it all dies.
Huh.
So a lot of people starve because of the flooding, and a researcher in California has come up with is still working on a flood tolerant rice.
Huh.
So yeah, these are we're using science to come up with solutions to serve mankind.
Okay, and then where is the science actually taking place? Is it taking place at the farm? Is it taking place in the lab somewhere else, and then we're given the seeds and then they're grown here? Or
It's really interesting because, and in fact, I would encourage folks that want to come out and take a look. These are farmers and scientists working side by side. So some have a strength in the agronomy, and some have their strength is in the biotechnology, and and they meet in the middle, and that's kind of what they're working on. So they grow out these lines. It's like how they used to do it, the traditional way, but now they've just got the science down to a very unique, specific way to do it. So instead of taking 10 years to grow out these parent lines and come up with the seed that they really want, maybe it takes 3 to 5 years to find that specific trait.
And then those seeds are then shipped to the rest of the world.
Well, okay, so they're shipped to the mainland where they're grown out, and then those seeds are disseminated to the farmers.
Okay, so I see, because there couldn't possibly be enough seeds on one farm in Hawaii to be able to...
Right. So they come up with those specific lines, and because the science is so specific, and you'll hear this word a lot, contamination. The biotech industry, the seed industry is very concerned about cross-pollination.
Okay, right.
Because if you're looking at one specific trait, they don't want it to cross-pollinate with another trait that's planted, 1 acre away.
Absolutely.
So they're very specific to make sure that those plant lines, those parent lines are contained, and that they're very focused, and the research is going to be specific.
How do they keep them separate?
Well, they use the research. It turns out something like corn, because we hear that a lot. Contamination is the word, the fear word that a lot of the activists use. What happens is they put a certain, by all the research using wind and rain and hurricane, and how far can the pollen fly?
Oh, I
wind.
see. Okay.
And so they use that research to determine how far do they need to plant the next field of corn.
Okay.
And they use a certain amount of distance to be sure to accomplish that.
Okay, that's very interesting, because it seems like that it's absolutely vital to keep the strains of the seeds absolutely separate.
Right.
Because you don't want to mess up your science. You don't want to mess up your experiment.
That's exactly it. And we have one of the arguments against the industry has been, this contamination idea. And I've tried to explain to folks that honestly, with all the money these folks are investing in the research, they are more concerned about cross-pollination than anybody else. So, and remember this: corn only pollinates corn. Corn's not going to pollinate taro or zucchini, pineapple. So, it's a very, very specific type of activity that they're doing. Very safe. And it doesn't glow in the dark. Right. Growing blue out there, and some of the scary things you hear.
Those are kind of. I've heard a lot of those Frankenfood, and types of arguments.
Yeah.
Now, with the development of a seed crop, a certain percentage of land on the islands, which is obviously very precious and very finite, is being devoted to just making seeds that we don't eat here in Hawaii.
That's right.
And I know that may be another concern. What do you have to say about that? How much land is available to Hawaii for food that we can actually eat here on the islands?
Well, we have across the state what we consider prime arable lands, and those are our prime A, B, and C lands.
Okay.
The seed industry is actually only on 5% of those lands.
Okay.
So it's about 25,000 acres across the state. And believe it or not, at any one point in time, they're only planting on 6,000 to 7,000 acres.
Okay.
So their footprint is very small.
Okay.
I mean, as far as their water use, they use drip irrigation, and their inputs are going to be very low as well, because they have these very precious crops that they're trying to grow out. So the footprint is small themselves. But what they've been able to do, and I think this is one of the arguments too. Seed industry, we're a $200 million industry. Now the number one agricultural commodity, although these are things that are being shipped all over the world, not left here in Hawaii to eat. They're really trying to work with the Farm Bureau and farmers to make sure that other farmers can get on the land as well. Land is only one issue that farmers face, a challenge. There are a number of other issues that they're facing that farmers choose not to farm. And land is just being one of them. So what the seed industry's been able to do is, as unfortunate as it is, pineapple and sugar has sort of gone to the wayside. Seed industry's been able to come in. These are 100 and 200-year-old irrigation systems and infrastructure failing. Seed industry's been such wonderful stewards. They've invested millions of dollars to make sure that the irrigation and the infrastructure is there, not only to support the seed industry and the crops that they're growing, but to also assist in the farmers in the outlying areas. Yeah, and one of the things too, it's hard because the big landowners, they want to sell. I would rather sell one big bulk and lease one big bulk versus piecemeal 5 acre. So they like the seed industry coming in and either leasing or buying the land. However, it doesn't help the small farmer that just wants the 5 acres. So the seed industry, I know specifically Monsanto, and I know Dow Agro is trying to do this as well. They're working in a co-op relationship with the Farm Bureau to take 150 acres, put those aside, and allow the Farm Bureau to put farmers on those lands. And those are Monsanto sort of deeded lands, right next to the seed, the seed corn that's being grown. These will be farmers that understand and embrace the fact that biotechnology is a tool for them to use. They're going to be growing the food that we're going to keep here in Hawaii that address our food security issues. But by all means, they're doing exactly what they need to do to support agriculture in Hawaii. They're doing it in an appropriate way, and they're not sort of the big monster greedy corporations coming in and buying up all our ag land. There's plenty of land for everybody.
What do you think the problem is with farmers and seeming inability to produce enough food to sustain us?
I mean, it's expensive, and it's really hard work. You have these generations of farmers, and if you know any kids today going to college, the last thing they're really interested in is going into agriculture or farming. It's very labor-intensive type of work. So one of the big issues is just the simple fact that we don't have the workforce that's supporting the farmers. So we see some of these issues with the two biggest farms on Oahu at least, and issues with illegal immigration. It's because we don't have the workers necessary to support the farming. And so the labor is really critical. The other thing is the inputs. We still import a lot of the oil and a lot of the fertilizers and these other things. Running a tractor, for instance, all require fuel. Those are very expensive inputs to most farmers. And if you're not following the Maui situation with the water, we have a challenge of how do we balance the water needs of these competing resources.
It's a huge deal.
It is.
Water rights is
Development,
a huge deal, yeah.
You've got the streams and environmentalists, you've got farmers. So yeah, I mean, the question is, how are we going to balance the water issues? So a lot of challenges facing farmers. And I always go back to Richard Ha, a very well-known farmer on the Big Island, and Hamakua Springs Farms, and he says, farmers will farm if they make money.
Right.
And that's the bottom line. And so we collectively, the society, needs to figure out, how do we put the farmers on the farm and make sure they stay in business?
Exactly. And it seems like, I mean, are there government incentives? What government incentives do you think are the most successful in?
Right now, successful. I think if they're successful, we'd be seeing more farmers. But so unfortunately, maybe there's not enough. We've got what's called the EZ zone, the enterprise zones, and those actually enable farmers to take a sort of a cut on the paying general excise tax on some of those produce that's being grown, some of the work that they're doing within that zone. So those could be tax incentives, could be one way. There's obviously the issue around buying local is another one, another opportunity that we could be working on. I know Sheraton and Nalo Farms worked together on a collaboration to make sure that they were getting local produce into the hotels. So something as simple as getting the hotels and the Department of Ed and all these sort of larger entities to commit to buying that produce, that could be a very great opportunity for the farmers. And maybe one of the other things is, I'm not being directly involved with it, just being able to bring your produce to market and selling it whole is one thing, but I don't know if you have the time to wash your lettuce, but I now buy the big bags of lettuce at Costco.
I do the same
thing. A lot
thing.
of farmers don't. So if our society, our urban Honoluluites, we like that type of prepackaged way of buying things now, and the little carrots. And,
so convenient. They're already peeled. Yeah,
exactly. We love that, right? Well, farmers don't have access to the resources to be able to come up with those sort of prepackaged opportunities. So really they need some kind of packaging plant or facility to provide those resources to them and allow them to take advantage of those types of products and getting them to market. And you know what the last thing is? Dino Kimoto does this very well, but you know, a lot of them got to marketing your produce and marketing your farm and getting them out, getting visibility and getting people to sort of buy the brand, so to speak. That is really important to farmers, and a lot of them, I just want to farm.
Right.
You know, and it's a lot of work, and they're not coming out of school with a marketing degree. So, you know, there's just a number of challenges for farmers, for the agricultural industry and community overall. And I would at least expect that the biotech industry is a player in making sure some of those resources come to fruition.
Because they're capitalized better.
They absolutely.
Than these little guys.
And we're a stronger voice. I mean, there's room for everybody. We call it coexistence.
Absolutely.
And there's small farmers, and then there's the agribusinesses, and then there's everybody in between.
Right.
There's organic, and there's traditional farmers, conventional farmers, and there's the biotech type of crops. So, I think if we can understand that we can work together, united a little bit more, one solid voice, I think maybe we'll be able to address some of those challenges better.
And I think the working together, especially among smaller organizations, is a problem. It seems like the organizational dynamics among small farmers, like they're almost reluctant to share things, you know, which seems to kind of behoove them in the long run.
Well, I think part of it too is, you know, it's just like if you're a teacher or any other profession, continuing education credits.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so I'm a farmer. I may or may not have gone to school for, you know, with an ag background or biology background. Maybe I learned from my parents. But along the way, things change. Something as simple as pesticide use. A lot of, you know, a certain population chooses not to eat conventional produce used with, you know, using pesticides. So we came up with organic. People pay a premium for organic food, and that is their choice. But farmers need help in understanding how to use pesticides appropriately, because integrated pest management is a sort of a bigger umbrella that they could learn from, and so there I would say in steps the ag biotech industry to be able to say, because we have the resources to bring the people together and make sure they understand how to do it right, make sure that we're continue to be stewards of the land,
Right.
and not overuse those types of tools.
Because it seems almost like the biotech industry helps keep a lot of the costs down with respect to produce. Like, for example, I'm thinking about going to Whole Foods and I want to buy a head of lettuce. And it's about $97. And it's that organic piece of lettuce that has never touched a pesticide. Obviously, that farmer probably had to sacrifice a lot of heads of lettuce,
Sure.
because pests destroyed the other heads of lettuce, and that's why I have to pay all this money for this obviously not pest-resistant head of lettuce.
Sure.
Whereas if you have a genetically modified crop, you're going to be able to probably get something at a lower price that maybe is pesticide, doesn't need pesticides, or is more resistant to things like that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the whole sort of supply and demand type of model as well. And that is how you just put your finger on. The tools of biotechnology are really there to help farmers, to help the agricultural industry, and to help them stay in business by reducing those types of costs on their behalf. Organic, I mean, if these organic farmers bust their okole out there, I mean, they got to do a lot.
Absolutely.
A lot of pests coming in, and they've
Sure.
got to look at natural ways of ensuring that they can get their produce to market. And sure, if you've got a couple oranges, you look at one grown conventionally, and you look at one grown organically, one looks really pretty.
Right.
And as consumers, we want to go buy that really nice
the perfect
looking one.
orange,
That's right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But if I personally, as a lifestyle choice, want to make sure that I feel like this is going to be the one I want to eat, then by all means you should have the choice to buy
Absolutely.
organic.
Absolutely.
Now, let me just clarify, there's absolutely no nutritionally, there's nothing superior about that organic orange versus this organic orange. I mean, the study, the research by scientists all over the world, there is no difference.
They're the same thing.
But if you choose this one, you can be assured that it was grown without using pesticides,
Right.
Grown in a certain way that maybe is more something you're more accustomed to your lifestyle choice.
Now, when we're talking about genetically modified food, we are not talking about irradiated food, correct?
No.
These are very, very different
Right,
things. I
right.
want to kind of bring that up because it seems that people are much more even concerned about food that has been exposed to some sort of radiation, right, to kill bacteria.
Sure,
Is that correct?
right. Well, I'll say that is one thing, but definitely the issue around sort of changing or inoculating, papaya is a great example.
Okay, yeah.
Papaya is like the world model of the success of biotechnology, and we had a papaya ringspot virus here in Hawaii. It wiped out papaya on Oahu. It went up to the Big Island to plant, and sure enough, the ringspot showed up on the Big Island. And they were able to, Dr. Dennis Gonzalez, Kamehameha School's graduate, came up with a transgenic papaya called the rainbow papaya. It's quoted with saving the papaya industry in Hawaii.
Amazing.
Yes, absolutely. And so you can see these pictures of the ringspot virus papaya trees,
Right.
and they're just dwindled, and they're small, and they're dying. And then they show a field of the transgenic papaya, and they're large, and they're thriving. And I mean, we're not talking about 50-pound papayas or anything. It's nothing
Right.
like that, but just the simple fact that they're being able to be grown and being able to get to market, and that they still taste good, and they're delicious,
Yeah.
and the people want and need them, and they're great nutritionally for everybody. So that one little change they did, it's like a flu immunization. You want to get your shot, and we'll give you a little bit of the flu, and then you're going to be safe from any flu coming in. Do the same thing with the papaya. And
So they actually gave the papaya a little bit of it was a virus.
a little bit of the virus.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
right. And it's just that, we still have this issue with vaccines. Vaccines cause autism. Vaccines
Right.
cause some people, some parents, and it is their right,
Sure.
have chosen not to inoculate their children from measles or mumps or polio.
Right.
And I'm not here to judge them. They have a
Right.
choice that they're making. However, the science is there. The science is saving lives.
Right.
We use the science now in agriculture. And for those of us who don't have a problem with it, we're going to continue to use it and eat the produce that's grown with it. Some people have just chosen another lifestyle.
Right.
And that is their right. That is their choice.
What are other ways aside from, for example, exposing a food to a small amount of a virus to help it get an immunity? What are other ways that that crops are quote unquote genetically modified?
Well, it's hard to say because this research, and I am not, the PhD
Right.
in this
Absolutely.
area, but the bottom line is the researchers don't sit in their warehouse, in their lab going, what do I want to create today?
Right.
The farmers basically come to them and say, hey, we got a problem with this.
Okay.
And Micronesia again, I can't grow the taro because the soil's too high in salinity. A bungee top virus is what's hit a lot of our banana. So now they're looking at, okay, what are some things we can do with this banana? Our population is going to grow to 9.6 billion by the year 2050. How are we going to feed all these people? So yield becomes one thing. So it's not just inoculating some kind of plant from a virus or a disease or the worms. That's the other thing. Corn, the worms like to eat up our corn. Have you ever opened the corn and you're like,
Absolutely.
worm?
Absolutely.
Right? So the BT sweet corn is something that Monsanto was able to work into it to ensure that the worms don't love this kind of corn. I like that.
Yeah.
I like, my produce without bugs. So those, there's a lot of options on the table, and it's a huge investment of dollars to just do research on one specific plant, on one parent line. So they really work with the farmers to identify what those opportunities might be, not just for the farmer, but obviously for the industry. And I just know more that I read that drought tolerance is the one that's getting the most attention right now.
And aside from drought tolerance, in terms of global warming, is that really the major concern with global warming, is drought tolerance of crops? Because I know it's absolutely going to affect the food supply as it progresses.
Absolutely. Do I think that that's the number one issue with I'm not really sure. I think there's obviously a lot of issues just from an environmental perspective, if you've listened to anything that's being put out there right now. But for the agricultural community, that is absolutely an issue. Maui right now is suffering the worst drought in history. Yeah. So clearly that has to be at the back of our mind. How do we conserve water? The ag biotech guys all use drip water, drip lines now. So that's one way of doing it. But not every produce, not every plant can be fed using drip. Sometimes they need spray. So I do think that that's an issue, because as we sit here in America, in all of our arrogance, and we have a choice of buying at Whole Foods or a choice of buying at Costco, most of the world does not have that choice.
Right.
Most of the people are really just looking at subsistence. So I want to grow this crop, I want to feed my family, and I want to take some to market. And that just kind of elevates quality of life for everybody.
What do you see where do you see the industry going in Hawaii over the next couple of years? What do you see in the future for the seed crop industry here?
Well, the growth has been huge. It's been about a 42% growth. Compared to the entire state and any other industry or sector, it's all been sort of either stagnant or negative. Seed crop industry is just really growing strong, and that's a demonstration of the demand for the tools, the science, the technology. I think we're probably going to flatten out a little bit. They're still doing a lot of the research, still going to be looking at how do they, always, any profession, how do I do it better?
Right, exactly.
So clearly they're going to be doing those things. Food security continues to be an issue for Hawaii, and the biotech industry needs to step up to the plate. And just like what Monsanto's doing with putting those farmers on those 150 acres, if we can't get them to the land the traditional way where they just go in and lease their little acres, then I think there's a great role for the seed industry. And clearly their investment in the irrigation and infrastructure is an opportunity to take advantage of as well. They're wonderfully good corporate citizens. They do get this black cloud of corporate greed, and you hear about all the negative stuff. And I think for a lot of us that work with the industry and work in the industry, and the folks who are doing the farming and the folks who are doing the research, we feel good about the work we do, and I think we stand by the industry, and I think we would like to see them stay in Hawaii, and I think they will. If the climate, by that I mean not the global warming, but maybe even the political climate. We are getting hammered. We get hammered all the time, and I think the question remains whether or not they're going to have the freedom to operate here in Hawaii without a lot of really stringent, unnecessary, and unwieldy regulations.
Understood. Right. And that seems to be a huge problem in general, but yeah.
Yeah, in general, here in Hawaii, we
Yeah.
get that sort of business-unfriendly climate and
Right.
regulatory authority over us. But what we found recently is a vocal minority. They tend to be fringe, very extreme. I think that a lot of them, as I've said repeatedly, they have a choice that they've made in their life, and more power to them. But I don't think that they have the right to make those choices for the rest of us. And unfortunately, on islands like Kauai, where they have these big anti-GMO movements, we've seen it on Big Island and on Maui. Not as much on Oahu, because I think we're a little bit more of an urban island,
Sure.
and we
Yeah.
put up with a lot on this
Yeah,
island.
true.
So I think we've learned to be good neighbors and good stewards to each other. So, but places like Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is perfect for the seed industry. And they actually pass laws now to entice the seed industry to come there and grow and to do business there. And,
That's terrific.
Mexico does the same thing. And so other countries are looking at the opportunity to bring them to do the work there, but we'd like them to stay here. They're the largest employer now in agriculture, almost 2,000 employees
Incredible.
within the seed industry.
It sounds like we could really learn a lot from these other
The
places.
doors are open.
The doors are
Yeah.
open. Terrific. Well, thank you so much for coming
Sure.
by. This was really a terrific perspective on
Yeah.
things. Thank you so much.